everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of STACS of Questions. This is your final episode for season 1, so thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us. And let's see what we've got in store for you today. So tonight, as always, I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, Morag Shaw and Colin Lamont. Morag is going to be heading up the blue team tonight, and Colin is going to be playing for the red team, and it's all to play for after last week's episode 11, where we left off. So tonight's challenge of the week is going to be a summer GIF off. We have got 4 GIFs on the screen, which are, for those of you who are listening via podcast, a penguin dancing in a rubber ring. We've got 2 ice creams, a festival, and a plane going round the earth. And Morag and Colin have got to choose one of these GIFs and generate a question inspired by one of them. So I think we did this actually at Christmas time before, so it's very similar to that. But what I've done to make it a little bit challenging this week is I am going to get you guys to choose your topic. Now, last week we did computer systems and software, so I thought, only to be fair, before we finish up, we should do probably the other 2 units. So one of these cards has got hidden a database topic, and the other one has got web. I think Morag did ladies first last time and chose. So Colin, will we start with you? Which of the 2 cards would you like to pick?
I'll go pink, please.
You'll go pink. I'll have a pink, please, Bob. Okay, you have got web design and development. Lucky, lucky. Morag, you're going to go for the green card, obviously.
I'll go green, yeah. I'll go green.
And yours is going to be databases, database design and development. So your challenge is to generate something based on those GIFs. You can go back and have a look at them if needs be. And we'll put a 10-minute timer on, and you guys can get started your challenge now while I go and introduce this week's guest. So joining me tonight, I have the wonderful Alan Furness. He is the PT of Business and Computing at Hindland Secondary School in Glasgow, has been teaching for 10 years, but based at that school, teaching for 16 years, but based at that school for 10. Is that right, Alan?
No, I've actually been at Highland for 16, but I was faculty head for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. So have you been
I'm a one school guy.
You're a one school guy. Very nice. So tonight you're going to be joining us to look at, where we're talking a little bit about progression really, and what you do in the BGE to help kids prepare for your national courses, because you've got quite a good uptake at national higher and advanced higher. You were saying you've got, is it 17 advanced hires this year?
17 advanced hire, yeah. So that takes forward an awful lot of the hires. Progression's quite strong, quite positive.
Good. So you must be doing a lot really in the BGE, I think, right, to be getting that sort of uptake. So we talk about some of the things that you do that you think help. So I thought we'd start off by talking about the fundamentals, right? S1 and S2. So what fundamentals do you think it's good to cover in S1 and S2 so the pupils kind of feel aware of what computing science is and whether it's a good path for them to take in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. A big focus for us is making sure that pupils are getting that knowledge, that skill base, but also they're having a good experience. You know, if we're going to want them to take through, they need to be experience something they can see themselves doing, that they're going to want to continue studying. So we know for S1 and S2 there is a huge variation in what comes through from primary. So I always ask the question, what does level 3 mean in a subject when you can't guarantee that a level 1 or 2 has even happened?
Yeah.
And you get such a big variation. So what we really try to do is make sure that all of the bases are covered. So we do a little bit of programming here, a little bit of systems there, a little bit of cyber security. We try and bring all that together, but what we really want to do is link them together in context that actually makes sense for the young people. And a big driver actually was at the Education Scotland Computing Science event, and Professor Sue Sentence was saying about these different traditions within computing science. So like whether it's about the algorithmic or the societal kind of viewpoint. But what that showed to me is actually there is a really, really broad range of things to cover in the world of computing science, and it's actually hard to define the subject because of that. So by doing things like, we'll use resources like code.org, or we'll do the Beabrish Challenge, or we'll do our cybersecurity unit where we look at Bletchley Park and the history of computing and the cybersecurity aspect. we have just this year introduced an AI unit into our programme, because we were quite fortunate we were able to get a digital skills period. So it's really expanded the amount of time that we've got in our S1 programme. So by being able to bring these things in, it has been a really engaging experience for young people, while also underpinning that kind of fundamental knowledge that we want them to have about, here's how computing science is going to help me, even if I'm not going to become an app developer, but whatever field I go into, I'm going to be able to use that skill set to take it forward.
That's great. And I think it's also as well, like I'm aware of this in my school, that sometimes it's not just the national 3, 4, 5 you're preparing them for, but they could be not coming back to compute until they come back in S5 to do games development or cybersecurity, because we don't run those courses in S4. And so you might be preparing kids for something you're not going to see them again for the next 2 years. So about giving them a little flavour of what everything is, isn't it?
Absolutely. And within that as well, looking for that progression. So the kind of programming stuff that we'll do in S1, it'll be maybe quite small scale. We're really trying to get those programming concepts. We want them thinking, so we use Scratch. We don't do anything that's massively different from what everyone will be doing, but it's thinking about what are they learning at that point. If they're using a loop, they're using it in the correct way, because we do find that a lot of young people coming from primary will have had some experience of these things, these concepts in programming, but not necessarily always getting that kind of robust understanding of the different concepts. So building up into S2, what we really want to do is push them into that problem solving and that kind of wider understanding of programming. So in S2, for instance, we've got our Lego robotics unit inspired by the first Lego League competition. And that's fantastic. It's cooperative, it's hands-on, it's real, and they see it as part of this actual problem solving, not just some abstract thing on a screen that might just calculate a couple of numbers together, but it's actually producing something that they can see immediately physically what those results are, and that has a real impact on their engagement with it. And even when it's some things like, we'll go through the whole process with that. We'll get them to do a little bit of analysis and design, but the testing could just be filming it and giving me a commentary of how their robot's running. But it's understanding why that happens, what that is for, what that leads into, so that when they go into third year, they start with textual programming, they've got that foundation, they've seen enough of it that they know how to bring those different ingredients together.
Yeah, that's great. So talking about third year then, so I know that in National 5, you were saying earlier that you teach web and then you move on to higher and you teach databases, so the kids have got like a well-rounded knowledge by the time they get up to advanced higher. What key topics do you cover in S3 to prepare the kids for moving into those national courses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do have a view that I think all learning in the BG is a journey towards National 5. I think to say that there's not a consideration of what they're going to be presented at, it would be unfair. So we absolutely devote an awful lot of time to software and web and computer systems. But I think a big thing for us is being able to say, we're not tied to that National 5 curriculum at that level, that we're able to bring things in. So, being a cyber first school, encryption at National 5 is a bullet point. It's half a lesson, if that, in terms of what they actually need to know. But being able to engage with that a little bit more and go into a little bit more depth, do things like the Cypher Challenge and try out different methods of encryption and actually get a good understanding that's far beyond potentially what National 5 defines. But it allows for that engagement if that's an area that people really wants to push forward in. And given that we do have, as you say, the NPAs, the cybersecurity in 5th and 6th year, we want them to have an understanding of what that pathway could look like as well. So we do like to try and go into what the pupils are asking for. We even devote a wee bit of time sometimes to, what are their curiosities. They must have had something in them that said, this is why I want to take computing science. So we start to explore that a little bit and go right off piste with it and say, or they just want to understand how, I got asked today actually how does a hard drive work? How does a magnetic metal disc give you data? So we just started exploring it, and I think that third year, before you start getting into the
you have to know this.
Absolutely, things need to be so lined up. it gives you a lot of room to do that. You know, and I mentioned about the S2, the first Lego League. So third year is where our team gets to really engage with that, take part in that competition. We've done well this year. But whether that's, you know, bringing in a little bit of the AI conversation, you know, the teachable machine, and making these tools that don't really appear in the course definitions, but at that stage, when you're talking about level 4, you're talking about pupils that have been really interested and wanted to buy into it, we're able to take a little bit of time and explore that, knowing that we're still having that baseline of, yes, there is still a programming knowledge there is still HTML and CSS and all the various things that we need to cover, but having a bit of fun with it.
Excellent. So you've got quite a lot going on then in your BG course, and I can see why the kids are really enthusiastic about it. So how do you then track the pupils to then, I'm presuming similar maybe to my school in S4, you're having kids that maybe at National 3, National 4, National 5. Like, how do you track the kids to know what the right level for them is as they move into S4 based on your BG courses?
Yeah, BG tracking is something we've had an awful lot of conversations about across the school. And again, that point I made earlier about we don't always get the data coming into S1 about what level they could be. We might get a broad technologies comment, but not necessarily down to the level of computing science. So there's a lot for us to unpack there and figure out from individuals. One of the things we really tried to do actually for across S1 and S2, the big topics that we'll do, so the Lego robots that I mentioned, or the Bletchley Park unit, the assessments that we bring in, we try to make them holistic. We try not to make it these high stakes and big tests that you know we know are going to be coming eventually. But what we try and do is have a bronze, silver, gold approach. So we try and come up with a task at the appropriate level where we basically say, all pupils should be able to achieve bronze, most pupils should be able to achieve silver, and some pupils will push on beyond that and look at that gold. So it doesn't really give us a definitive, and it's broadly still all working within level 3, but when we're talking about the progress within that level, it gives us a lot of information about what that likely engagement is going to be, what that pathway could end up looking like. So it basically gives pupils and parents, so that's a big factor as well when it comes to parents' night and options choices, a bit of confidence to say that yes, they have reached a level, there is room to grow, but at least they've seen that target beforehand. And where they are silver in some areas, gold in some areas, maybe bronze in another, they're able to see which particular aspect of the course is playing to their strengths.
Yeah.
So if it's that creativity aspect, if it's that algorithm development, coding, logical thinking that's their strength, we could say maybe computing science right now might not be the best option, but there's games development or digital media, or you're really liking this systems knowledge and the network things and the encryption, so you know, cybersecurity down the line. So that bronze, silver, gold thing makes a big impact on our ability to fine tune exactly where a pupil is working, and over the course of the 2 years for the various topics that we do. And granted, all of this is within one period a week. Of course, it's very hard to get into an awful lot of depth for any course. When you're on those timescales, and especially when you're comparing that to the likes of their maths development. So we're having to use that data as well to see how they're coping in their maths, how they're coping in science, how they're coping in these different areas, and try and absorb that into what we are tracking and commenting on as well.
Yeah, good, fantastic. So we'll finish off with the question of the week, which I've actually written on the screen today, and that's what key skills, like if someone says to you, like, I'm making a new BGE course, like I want to have the kids prepared as possible for the national courses, what key skills do you think the pupils like should develop over BGE? If you were to strip it right back to the basics, what do you think are the most important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's very thought-provoking, because on the one hand, you want to, you know, that they need to have that conceptual understanding of programming. They need to be able to sit down, break a task into its algorithm, that computational thinking. I mean, that probably sums up everything that I really want from a BGE pupil as they start getting into it. I think overall, though, I think confidence is a really big part. The ability to to take on a challenge, have it not work the first time, but still want to see it through for its own sake. I think that's a big part of it. Problem solving, just really at the core of what we're trying to do. A curiosity to say, how does a thing work? If I strip this apart and break it down to its components, how is that going to look? How is that going to work? And then there's obviously the real subject specific things. I want them to know, number system. I want them to know binary. I want them to recognize syntax. I want them to have debugging and all of these things. But I think they all start from that place of, here's a problem. I have a toolkit that's going to allow me to solve it. I just need to figure out the best way to do that. I need to work with people. I need to take on feedback. I need to think about what the humanity is in this. Like, if I'm making some AI tool, how is that going to actually make sense for a person? What's the impact? What's that wider thought of how this is going to play out in the real world? If someone's going to use it, I need to think about their experience. But resilience, confidence, independence. I mean,
resilience is a big one these days, isn't it?
They're so vital, and actually, in some ways, much more important than can you code even. Do you know what a variable is? But the ability to want to learn that, I think, is a real factor for us.
Absolutely perfect. Well, thank you so much for that, Alan. That's been absolutely amazing. Let's go over and see how our challengers are getting on with their task this week. Okay, so this week we'll start off with Morag for the blue team. Tell us which GIF you've went for and what you've come up with.
Welcome. I went for summertime with the penguin on the beach with his rubber ring. So I've got databases and Scots away, which is not easy to say, offer holidays. Holidays, I've just double typed that, in countries across Europe and Asia, and details of holidays and bookings are stored in three databases and stored in a database with three tables: customer, holiday, and booking, and the field lists. Customer has customer code, primary, surname, email. Holiday has holiday ID, primary, country, price, and departure date. Booking has customer code, primary, foreign, holiday ID, primary, foreign, and a number of persons. So, question 1, here we go. Explain the use made of a compound key in the Scotsway database. 1 mark. Design a query, number 2, to display details of dearest holiday to each country, and these holidays should be listed from dearest to cheapest. So I've specified the holiday details are holiday ID, price, and country, because what I wanted there was a query with an aggregate function that required grouping, but also within the grouping it would require a sort, because the grouping will sort by country, and I don't want it by country, I want it by price. Number 3, write a query to display the total cost of the holiday booked by customer 2123. So I've just picked a number. Show the surname and email and departure date and total cost using a readable heading for total cost. So I want there is an implemented query with a calculated value on it and an alias. In question 4A, write a query to display the total cost of the cheapest holiday to France, again with a readable heading. Simple query though, it's only got an aggregate function, so that's pretty straightforward. But part B, use the query above to display details, surname, email, and country of all bookings to Spain that cost less than the cheapest holiday to France. So that's going to be a query that's requiring a query in the from statement. So if you're running SQL, it'll need to be a view. If you're running it with Access, you'll need to store the query, that type of thing. In question 5, the following queries use update the cost of holidays to Greece by 8%. Explain why the query is not fit for purpose. So I think that, I'm never quite sure, I think that's evaluation. So that's what I was heading for anyway. And the query is update holiday, set price per person equals price per person times 1.08. So I've got a question, total marks, I didn't read all the marks. Question 1 is 1 mark. Question 2 is 4 marks. Question 3 is 2 marks. Question 4A, the simple query, is 1 mark. Question 4B, using that query, is 2 marks. And the evaluation is 2 marks, because I'm looking for an explanation in there. So I think that minute 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 12 marks, Kim. There you go.
fit a lot into that period of time, so very well done. And a lot of the common sort of exam questions that we see there, like with the double query and things, at higher levels. So a really good piece of revision or, you know, mini test or homework, definitely you could put together from that. So well done. So let's go across and see what Colin has done for the red team.
So
Go,
I
Colin, what you pick?
had web, and I picked the kind of festival type one. So there's some basic HTML code for National 5 with a heading, a paragraph, an image, another paragraph. There's a wee div section in there with a subheading, a couple of paragraphs, and a couple of hyperlinks. And so my first question, the links section of the page makes use of both internal hyperlinks and external hyperlink. Explain why an external hyperlink would make use of an absolute address, just to try and force them into thinking about absolute and relative. Question 2, the image added to the page makes use of a JPEG file format. State one other file format that could be used to add an image to a web page. And then part B, explain why the Copyright Designs and Patents Act would affect the images added to a web page. Just to try and get away from ask permission, because as soon as you see Copyright Designs and Patents Act, the answer is normally ask permission. Question 3, the developer would like to change the color of the text in the paragraphs. So there's 4 different paragraphs on that page. Write the CSS code needed to change the color of the text in the paragraphs to red. So just a simple CSS rule. And then part B, the text in the paragraph about transport links should be blue. Describe one way to change the color of only the text in this paragraph to blue. Now, I wanted to force an ID or a class, but I couldn't find the words to force an ID or a class without using an ID or a class. So if somebody was to come up and say inline styling, then you would probably have to shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, that would work as well. And that is one of the pitfalls of web, that you could do the same thing 14 different ways. And finally, question 4, bit of evaluation. The text colors of the paragraphs have been successfully changed. So we've got red paragraphs and blue paragraphs now. The following code is added to the CSS code for the page. Body, background color red, and then evaluate the fitness for purpose of the page once this change has been made. So you're going to have red text on a red background. You're not going to be able to read it, something along those lines. And that was my web question.
Very nice. And we don't have the marks, but you've still done a very lot of work in the short amount of time that you've been given. And yeah, following all the rules and lots of code in there. So fantastic. So let's head over to Alan and see what he thinks of what you guys have created. So, Alan, you've seen the contributions from the red team and the blue team. What are your thoughts?
I again really liked the both of the approaches. Actually, I thought they were really nice. I thought the context of the database question that I thought was fantastic. I thought it was really kind of solid questions in there. I really liked in the web questions the fact that there was a bit of an attempt to bring in some kind of non-standard wording in questions, like you were phrasing it there about, you know, I've tried to use it without just saying IDs and classes. I think particularly with web, I think it's hard to come up with kind of problem-solving questions when it's quite kind of statement of fact a lot of the time with web. So across.
You think they tried to sway you know, with having chosen a web National 5 and a higher?
Well, I mean, either way, it's certainly, you know, both things I can see myself using, frankly. So definitely, I'll be pinching them. No problem with that.
So, anyone that was your favourite and why?
I would have to say that the web question, the red team answer, the questions I thought were really interesting, because it's always a thing with web, just trying to come up with those different ways of approaching a question, and I really like the fact that it was kind of pushing some of those A questions that I think are quite hard to deliver with web. So I really like the kind of problem solving approach with that one.
Very nice.
So I would say red.
Fantastic. So let's go across and see how that affects our scores on the doors for the final episode. No pressure. Okay, so that leads us to the scores on the doors. And as you can see, the red team have won the season with 7 points versus the blue team on 5. Now, we should state that there has been a mix of players playing for the red team, but for the majority, that has been Colin. So Valiantly played, Colin. Very well done on winning season 1. But we will be back with season 2, and it's going to be all to play for. Alan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure we'll hopefully see you back maybe to hear some more stuff about cybersecurity or something in season 2. So thank you for joining us. What we're thinking about doing next year is mixing up what we're going to talk about during Stacks of Questions. So we might look at talking about some of the different NPAs and things that are delivered in the senior school, because I know that a lot of other schools will be looking at delivering it and maybe haven't seen them before. So we're talking about bringing on some experts, but we'd actually love to hear from everyone at home and see if there is anything that you guys would like us to talk about, because this is for you. So it's really important that you get a little bit of say in what we're going to be covering. And I think other than that, that's us really. So get in touch in Stacks of Questions, Stacks Connected, if you want to tell us anything or give us any ideas. And apart from that, we're over and out. Have a lovely summer. Morag, Colin, would you like to add anything?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Have a good summer.
And that's us signing off from season 1. Speak to you later and have a lovely time. Bye.